Hello and welcome to Prateek Chess Videos.
Hello chess friends, today we are going to see a game between Short and Timman in the year 1991. Let's start the game. Okay, Nigel Short is white and Jan Timman is black, famous players of that time. And now let's start the game. Okay, so the game started e4, knight f6. This defense is known as the Alekhines defense, introduced in chess by Alexander Alekhine. And then e5, and after e5 was played knight to d5. This is the main line of the Alekhines defense. And now d4 is the main line, d6, and then knight to f3. Idea of knight f3 is to play bishop c4 and solidify our center. Now g6, bishop to c4, attacking the d5 knight, knight to b6, bishop to b3. Now after bishop to b3, here we keep an eye on this diagonal, and also we can play knight to g5 sometime. So that's good. So after bishop to b3, it was played. Well, here there are many moves. Actually, one is a5, one is see if we see here, but the main move is just bishop g7. Here we reach the Albert variation of the modern variation in the Alekhine defense. This variation was played extensively by Lev Albert in his career. That's why the name. So now after bishop g7, uh, here they choose a sideline. Instead of playing the short castle, the simple and logical move, they played queen to e2. Now this is something new because queen to e2, this is not the move you play regularly, because this we develop the queen at an early stage of the game, which is not an opening principle. You should not develop your queen in the opening. It will get in unnecessary tempos by the opponent pieces. But now after queen to e2, the idea of this position is to play e6. E6, and even better is a4, a5. So and also knight g5 is coming. So after queen e2, the main move here is to short castle. And now here there is a move e6, but it doesn't lead to much because we can just take f into e6 or even f5 and nothing happens because the pawn is fixed. That's why h3 was played. Okay, so as I said, this is not of avail, but actually Timman had already prepared for queen e2 and he knew the lines and he played knight to c6, an interesting sideline. I mean, an interesting. It's a second main line because it's as played as the main line, but also idea of this is that we are developing a piece and also putting pressure on your center. Okay, so now what should we play? Now we should play short castle, because after short castle, uh, my king is safely placed, and now I can sometime play c3 or knight c3, and then advance my center with e6 and d5. Those are the ideas. And now was played short castle. And now what should you play? Okay, now h3 is a very common move in the Alekhine defense. If you are playing it in white, then you should play the h3 move many times, because the thing is that one of black's ideas in this defense is to play bishop g4 and then put pressure on this d4 pawn with his knight and also his bishop, and when the d pawn is getting exchanged by his queen, so that's why we put pressure on the g4 pawn. And bishop g4 also is an unpleasant pin on this diagonal, so that's why h3 is played, so that we can totally avoid this bishop g4 by the pawn. And now here there's this move d into e5. There are many moves, but in the game a5 was chose. Why? Because the simple move a4 taps the bishop. So obviously we need to play a4. And now d into e5. Okay, after d into e5, it comes the move d into e5. So d into e5, d into e5. Now this file is open, and it is easily seen that it will be controlled by white, though it can be controlled by both players. But still white is the one who should control this file. Okay, so knight d4 was played, logical move, exchanging a good knight which is defending the central pawn. So knight into d4, queen into d4, and now rook to e1, defending the central pawn. But after rook e1, now the position is starting to get unclear. But now black does a mistake. He plays e6, which is a mistake. Actually, because see, this position, it is like equal, this position. Yeah, and you here play e6. Now the thing is that you have fianchetted the bishop, and now you can't play e6. It weakens these squares around the king more. Yeah, these squares around the king are weakened and later can be used as outpost. And if this bishop is unexchanged, then it's even bad, even worse for black, because when this bishop is exchanged, all the squares will be outposts for the white pieces to attack. So knight to d2, developing the knight. Knight f3 comes with tempo. Bishop to d7, and now uh, knight f3 is a logical move, but in the game c3 was played. Alright, with the idea of attacking the queen. So bishop d7. Okay, that's the downside of bishop b7. You attack in here. So that's a knight d5. Interesting move was played in the game. Interesting move. Now knight to f4 is coming. And also with this move you centralize this knight, and also it blocks this bishop, and now knight b4 is also coming, so you made your bad knight a good one. But still the tempo comes with knight f3, and the queen has to go back to c5. And now queen to e4. Well, queen to e4, now with the idea here of some time getting to the king side, queen h4, and now using these dark squares with bishop h6. That's a very, let's say, very poisonous idea for black, because his dark squares are very weak and black has to somehow defend them. So black finds a resource. Black tries to play queen to b4, trying to exchange this queen. So the queen has nowhere to go and attack because this whole line is covered. But here white plays the move bishop to c4, refusing to exchange, even at the price of a pawn, because bishop into d5 you win a pawn, but you give your advantage here because takes. Black's weakened structure is gone. Black has the bishop pair, and also he has the open file, and your queen is in middle of all the black's pieces, so it is equal. That's why bishop to c4 is a good decision for white, and now black is uh, in a very bad position. So knight b6 trying to attack and remove this bishop, but just b3 with the threat of bishop a3 and winning the f8 rook. Now knight into c4 was played in the game, uh, trying to just weaken the white pawn structure. But white isn't least concerned about it, because after b into c4 he weakens the white pawn structure, but now white has control over the white can use the b file, and also white's attacking potential is also very good, and including this threat of bishop a3 and bishop into f8. So rook e8, going away from this dangerous diagonal, and now rook to d1 controlling this d file, and this bishop's development is restricted. So now queen to c5, trying to restrain white from playing queen h4 because of bishop into e5, but white still plays queen h4 on account of if you play bishop into e5. Now here the thing is that if we just play bishop to e3, and your queen has nowhere to go and defend the bishop at the same time. But here bishop e3 is even better. Yeah, than bishop e3, and now this is just easily winning, because now knight into e5 is coming, and also you have dark squares are weakened, so I can attack and win. So bishop into e5 isn't even an option. So that's why b6. Now b6 idea is to develop this bishop through the long diagonal. But now bishop to e3, black uh, uh, gets white gets yet another tempo because of black's misplaced queen on c5. So now queen c6, and now comes the move bishop to h6, trying to exchange this defender bishop, and then all black's dark squares will be weakened. But now bishop h8 was played, refusing to exchange, and now rook to d8. Now rook to d8, taking advantage of the fact that now I can checkmate you if you play rook into d8 because of queen into d8 check. So bishop to b7, and after bishop to b7 was played rook a to d1, and rook a to d1. Now we totally control the d file along with support from the white queen, and now it is almost total domination. So bishop g7, see the advantage. It's not a material advantage, it's a positional advantage, because here it comes rook 8 d7, and after rook 8 to d7, now comes, so after this move rook 8 d7, this f7 pawn is under attack, and now queen f4 threats might be coming. That's why black did a smart decision by playing rook f8, prophylaxisly defending the f7 pawn. But now comes bishop into g7, king into g7, and now rook 1 to d4. This rook will join in the attack after queen f6 check, then rook h4 can join, and rook g4 can also join. So rook 1 d4, rook a e8, and now queen f6 check, king g8 forced, king h6 getting checkmated after rook to h4. So here that's why after king to g8 comes the move h4. Okay, h4 seems uh, seems a logical move. H5 is coming, and it is a logical move. H5, H6, and it's very difficult to uh, like evade this threat. But H5 was played, closing it. But now comes the legendary moves. Okay, now comes king to h2, and now comes rook to c8. Now what should you play? What is your winning plan in this position? Okay, white has completely binded black, and black can do nothing. Every spot of this uh, thing is guarded, and now what should you do? Okay, now it's time to finish old end game style. You know in end games when queen and king endgames are queen and king versus lone king. You bring up the king to checkmate. The same technique. Now was played king to g3, a brilliant move. King rook c to e8, and now king to f4. Brilliant move. Bishop to c8 threatening the rook, but he doesn't care. King to g5. Double X. Now resigned, black resigned, over. Why? Because now if you take on d7, now is played king h6, and you can't prevent mate on g7. That is so awesome. It's one move mate, no delay. Right now king g5, black just resigned because black cannot break into the fortress. Everything is guarded. You can't do anything by taking the a4 pawn and then the c2 pawn. It's so well guarded, this position. My god, it's such a glory. And if you think that king h7, but then comes queen into g6 check, blow out of the blue, and now you can play queen h6 check, king to g8, and now king f6 is also working. What a funny mate after queen to g7 is just mate. So an amazing game by Nigel Short. Okay, this was the game. I hope you like this video, and don't forget to click the subscribe button and the bell icon. Thank you.